So harvest log day 14, so we're 2 weeks in, which is ridiculous considering it is the 19th of July. This is a field that was spring oats, a variety called Neptune or Neptune, and we harvested this 2 days ago, so not quite our 5-minute fallow, but Derek's been catching up, drilling cover crops after the oilseed rape fields, just running a top around the edges of fields just to get rid of some rubbish around the sides, do a bit of margin trimming, which we can do in our stewardship after the 15th of July. And we are planting quite a big mix here. Now this seed was bought for harvest 2025 to be planted, so it's really a case of not quite using the seed up, but it needs to be used this year rather than leaving it to overwinter for another year. So the A330 on the front, the Horizon DSX 9m one on the back. Field's done about 4,500 hectares now, maybe even a bit more. Still going really well. Not putting any fertiliser on or anything like that at the back. We're putting this mix on at about 20 kilos a hectare, and you might say it's a bit of a gamble with everything being so dry, but having visited Groundswell this year, the Regen Farming Festival / conference, one of the talks I listened to was from an Hungarian agronomist, a farmer, and also an advisor from Poland, where the topic was talking about farming in the drought, and it definitely feels a little bit like that now. And a few things I took away from them was, one, we're doing the right sort of things in terms of direct drilling, trying to conserve as much moisture as we can. Secondly, growing cover crops to try and build soil health, to cover the soil. They were farming with rainfalls of around 500 mil. Our typical annual average here is 700, but it'll be a bit less than that unless we get a bit of a correction this year. And also to try and get these crops in again pretty soon after combining, to try and capture any moisture. Now I'm not saying there's any moisture here at all, there isn't. One of the other things they were saying was you need to get these cover crops in before rain. So over a big acreage, you can't just rush out and plant 500 hectares of stubble turnips, overwintered cover crop, in 5 minutes. So there isn't any rain on the forecast, but we're not using a huge amount of resource. We're probably using 4 or 5 litres a hectare of diesel. Probably drilling at 5 hectares an hour. So in terms of establishment cost, the seed is the biggest one, and that needs to be used up. It's putting it in really well actually. There's been a nice bit of tilt across the top of all of these fields that we've drilled so far. Going in really nicely. It's quite an expansive mix. It's one actually, I met a farmer on Nuffield Travels back in 2013, a guy called Mike on the Hills, who's a dry land farmer in South Island, New Zealand, and it's based around his mix with a few little tweaks in it here and there. So it is very much a warm season sort of summer cover crop with sorghum, buckwheat, vetches, crimson clover, dwarf sunflowers, red clover, Japanese reed millet, fodder radish, lupins, linseed, berseem clover, forage rape, phacelia, mustard, and a little bit of maize in there as well. So if this grows, then it can put an awful lot of goodness and heart back into this light soil. Over a relatively short period of time, We did this mix in, was it 2022, I think it was, after some peas. And just in the above ground biomass we captured and generated 200 kilos of nitrogen, 160 of phosphorus, and made that all available to the next crop. So it is very dependent on rain, but if we get some, this will also deliver some really good results. Not only that, the longer term weather forecast is El Nino and a lot of wet weather later on through the autumn. So if we don't get wheat established in here for whatever reason, we hope that we will, obviously, we will have a cover crop in here that will keep growing all the way through the winter, continuing to fix and store and capture a lot of nutrition, put organic matter back into the soil, feed the soil bugs and biology, and then we can take advantage of it next year. So that's the thought process. And won't be very long out here at all. Amazing amount of grasshoppers in here. You don't usually see them so many numbers out in the middle of the fields, but around the edges, in the margins, they're just hopping out of the soil everywhere. There's a lot of oat secondary regrowth in here. We've got a grasshopper hopping away there. It's nice to see. Lots of regrowth in here, so it was a good plan to come and cut this. A little bit of green in the sample. But a very, very light soil, light sample, quite light grains. So hopefully we can try to turn that around over time by farming in this way. That's the plan.